2 or 3 of the Sundays there at the one night, the joint that wouldn't go out. Mm-hmm. That was arguably the most, I'd say, dive bars that was ever in existence. Their pride was the fact that they never cleaned their bathrooms.
Oh, God. Hello, people of the world. Welcome back to another episode of Sam Sessions. We're back here in the acoustic A room of South Austin Music. As always, a very special day today. To my right, we got BB Morse, hosted by the world's worst interviewer.
Hey, what's going on?
How you doing, man?
All right. So far, so what?
That's good. We'll turn that around real fast. Don't you worry.
All right.
Man, I was getting ready for this, and have you lived in Austin your whole life?
No, I haven't.
Okay, so where are you from originally?
Originally from San Francisco, California, the Bay Area.
Wow, okay. So when did you move to Austin?
I moved to Austin the first time in 1974.
Wow.
And after about 9 months, we went home for Christmas break. Mm-hmm. And, of course, the band broke up and we never came back, not until the early 90s.
Wow.
I started coming back again. And I officially moved back to Austin in 1998.
Okay.
But I was commuting, doing most of my high-profile gigs down here and then going home to Nevada. I was living up at Lake Tahoe and in the Reno area. Mm-hmm. And, show band central and all that kind of stuff. And
right.
So I just kind of maintained a schedule of commuting and, 4,000-mile round trip 2 or 3 times a year. And then opportunity came up that I was able to move down here full time.
Yeah. So was your reasoning for originally moving to Austin because you're playing with a band? And
Yes. I was invited. The first incarnation, 1974, I was in a band that had been together for some time, and we found out that we were doing the majority of Texas artists out in Nevada and California and the West Coast with that band. It was called Bump and Grind.
Okay.
And Bump and Grind became the vehicle that I came to Texas with, and we got a gig at the Texas Opry House as a house band in the lounge. It was a 500-seat lounge. They had 3 venues there in the day, and Willie and Tim O'Connor and Wally and those guys were running, holding court. It was quite a magical time in Austin, and for myself as well. I was a young pup. I was 22 years old at the time when I first came here, and of course that was only a couple of years ago. Seems like. Mm-hmm. But the Texas Opry House, they had the 3 venues inside the Opry complex, and they had the lounge. It was about a 500-seater, and then they had the middle room, which was about 1,100 seats, and then the main room was 2,500 seats. And we would periodically go through, opening up for the middle room or the big room, and then after the show, we would be in the lounge.
The 500-seater.
Yeah.
Texas Opera House, that's what this place is called?
It's on Academy.
Is it still around?
Well, it used to be the Austin Convention Center before they built the new convention center.
Okay.
And they had the apartment complexes in back there, and it was condo heaven for us because we had been living a 6-piece band at the Don Mar Motor Court Hotel on South Congress. And you had to run around the shower 3 or 4 times to get your hair wet. And we used to have cockroach races, with dental floss tied onto the cockroaches and, matchboxes and keep them in there and run the herd on the cockroaches out in Don Mar. And we thought we had died and gone to heaven when we got the gig because the gig also came with an apartment.
Wow.
Which was a 2-bedroom apartment for 6 guys, but still it had 2 bathrooms, and the water pressure in that shower would tear your skin off. We'd just go in and flush the bathroom, flush the toilet sometimes. It sounded like a jet engine taking off. I mean, it had water pressure, man. But one time we it was during the World Series that year in '74 that we blacked out the entire cable system for South Austin, and there was a knock at the door. We didn't know we had blacked out the cable system, but what we had done is jerry-rigged the cable so that we could get the World Series.
Yeah.
And there was a knock at the door right before game time, and a very frustrated, very sweaty-looking technician was standing at the door as he had finally discovered the source of the blackout, and it was us. And he gave us a choice of either getting reported and turned into the police for pirating the cable, or signing up for the cable and getting a legitimate hookup. And we put together, back in those days, the Lone Star beer bottles, the empties, were worth more than the beer.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, you could buy a case of Lone Star back in those days. Remember, we're a 6-piece band, so that's only four beers a piece. But back in those days, and you could buy the case for $1.25, but the bottle deposit was $5. So it was very important to save your empties, and when you took the box of empties down there and walked back out, you had a case of Lone Star long necks for $1.25.
So you're getting paid to drink beer?
Yeah, basically so. And of course, being at the Opry House, man, there was an unlimited amount of long necks down there, and so part of our supplemental income was to collect the bottles for refund, and we'd show up down there, and that led into, as I said, the residency at the Opry House as the house lounge band, and we met a lot of the up-and-comers back in the day, and Jerry Jeff and the Kendalls and Ray Wiley and Doug Kershaw and Michael Martin Murphy and all those people. Our next-door neighbor was Connie Nelson and Doug's wife.
Wow. And
it was a good place of refuge and a safe place for them when husbands were on the road and whatnot. So anyway, it became a nice little community for us. Yeah. But the band broke up when we went back out for Christmas, and we never made it back to Texas until the early 90s. Myself personally didn't make it back. And, we got to play the Armadillo World and do a number of really, really great fun gigs. We didn't know how great they were until afterwards, as much as at the moment that.
Yeah, you never know how good it is until the good old days situation.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, sounds like I was born in the wrong time, man. I spend $100 on drinks if I try and go out these days.
I know, it's kind of a tough thing.
Yeah, nobody pays me.
No, nobody.
I bring my glass back every time. I never get a single dollar for it. I got to tip them. That's all I get.
Well, you're not holding your mouth right, man.
Maybe that's my problem. So in this 6-piece, were you the bass player?
I was the bass player.
Was this upright bass or electric bass?
No, it was electric bass at the time. Okay. I hadn't really started playing upright yet.
Okay.
And it was a funky, weird, kind of a very esoteric song list. We did everything from Larry Raspberry and the High Steppers to Doug Somm. Doug Somm and Friends was a big album out at the time, and we just went nuts with that album and learned everything we could. We even did La Cacahuata. We were a horn band. We had 2 trombones and a trumpet. And on our off night, duly noted that I've always wanted to enter this into the archives of Austin music, that one Sunday night, after we had been doing 2 or 3 of the Sundays there, the one night, the joint that wouldn't go out, that was arguably the most, I'd say, dive bars that was ever in existence. Their pride was the fact that they never cleaned their bathrooms.
Oh, God.
And they were proud of the fact that they remained untouched by any antiseptics or any brushes. That it was a dive of dives. It had
the dive bar,
peeling wallpaper, the red velvet stuff that kind of applied by the square. You know? And all the rest of it was just dark and dank, and the one night had a little patio out in the back, and so we were done playing for the night, and this kid came up to us. I say he was a kid. We were kids ourselves, but he was younger than us, and he approached us and said, "Hey, my name is Stevie, and I've been listening to you guys the last couple of weeks, and I'm hearing the saxophone part. Now, I don't play saxophone, but I play slide guitar, and I'm trying to really kind of hone in on the slide guitar, and I would like to play in your horn section, but I don't want any solos. I just want to take the sax parts."
Yeah.
Okay, and so we went, "Hey, that's cool. This kid's fun," and you know, complimenting us and says he really likes us and stuff, and wants to know if he can come and sit in with us on Sunday nights. And we said, "Of course, yeah, that sounds good." So next Sunday he comes out and sits in with us. We had a blast of a time, man. He was playing all the saxophone parts on the slide guitar and melding in with the trombones and the trumpet. And we get done, and he says, "Hey, my brother's playing down at Red River. There's Juice Bar." You know, back in those days, alcohol ceased to exist after midnight, and everything closed up. You couldn't buy at a liquor store either on a Sunday. You know? So it was like, okay, well, what are we going to do? Well, my brother plays down on Red River, and they serve tacos and smoothies until like 4 o'clock in the morning. So we go down there at 12:30, and our horn section goes down there. They took their horns with them. And as soon as we walk in, Stevie jumps up on stage with the guys. And it was Jimmy Vaughn. It was Omar Dykes. It was Delbert McClinton. It was Kim Wilson and Wes Starr.
Wow.
It was the friggin' Thunderbirds. We had no idea even who they were at the time.
Yeah.
And so anyway, they went and jammed, and the horn section got up with them, and Stevie played all night, and we drank smoothies and ate breakfast tacos until we were going to pop. But Stevie kept coming back on our Sundays and doing that. And it wasn't later until I got back to Nevada at that time that I was going through new releases. I was working with a radio station, and they had a bunch of new releases come in. And I see this guy with a familiar face, but he was wearing a, bolero hat with all the conchos and all this stuff. And I'm looking at him going, Stevie Ray Vaughan. Man, that sounds really familiar. That's the kid that came in.
Wow.
He was wearing a sock hat and, pretty greased out. Man, didn't look like he'd washed his hair for a couple of weeks.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So how old was he when most of this was happening?
I think I haven't looked it up in a while, but I think he was 2 years younger than me. So he might have been 19 or 20 years old.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
What a gem of a story. I mean, you hear countless stories of Stevie Ray Vaughan, but not many before he really took off.
Yeah, I know. And, just the nicest guy.
Yeah. We
just, fell in love with him and the way he played and everything at that early juncture. And then, of course, after the fame got him and whatnot, and before long, he wasn't with us anymore, and I never had another chance to run into him. So
yeah. Well, it's a good thing you have those memories at least, because that's pretty special. That's really, really cool. How long have you been a professional musician, would you say?
I've been a professional. I've been getting paid to play. Definition of professional: to be paid for something that you do.
Yep.
Otherwise, it would be a hobby. First paid gig, I was 9 years old,
Dang.
And I had a folk band called the Whiskey Hilltown Trio.
Mm-hmm.
And we were roughly fashioned after Kingston Trio, Chad Mitchell Trio, Peter, Paul, and Mary.
Mm-hmm.
And I was playing guitar. I started playing guitar when I was about 7.
Wow.
And my first band was when I was 9, and that band was together for a couple of years. And then I had taught my brother to play guitar at some juncture. I taught him Louie, Gloria, Sloopy, all the real easy 2-finger chord stuff.
Yeah.
And my brother just took off in that, and he just all of a sudden it's like, well, I'm a guitar player, but I was mostly a rhythm player. That was a full-time gig back in those days. You didn't even think about playing a single note. You were all chords and all rhythm. And a few years go by, and my brother just kept excelling, and pretty soon he bought a fuzz tone. And we went down and bought some St. George guitars and some Supro amps and a Silvertone amp. I remember one of the amps was a Silvertone. It was a piggyback. It was really badass. And we thought that, of course, we had hit our mark, and this was really fantastic. And my brother and a couple of his upperclassmen in high school, we all went to the same high school, that he decided that he wanted to form his own band. And I had my folk bands and stuff, and not really playing any rock and roll. My dad was a rodeo cowboy, so we knew all the old Strawberry Roan and Down in the Valley and all that kind of stuff. And all of a sudden the rock started. This was in 63, 64, right about that time when rock and roll was really gaining foothold. And so the next thing we know, my brother's off forming his band, and I'm going, oh, that's great for my brother. And he comes to me one afternoon and says, hey, Billy, we want you to play in our band with us. I had taught my brother and one of the other guitar players all the first fundamentals of the guitar that they knew.
Right.
Again, Gloria, Louie, Hang On Sloopy, and who's the Yardbirds' big hit back in those days. I can't remember right now, but so they said, oh, that's great. But I'm thinking in the back of my mind the whole time, I said, man, that's 3 guitar players in one band. And who in the hell's going to play bass? Yeah. And my older brother says, you are, sucker. And I said, no, I'm not. I taught you some bitches everything you know, and now you want to fire me off off guitar and put me on bass. And I said, there ain't no way that's going to happen. And a wrestling and boxing match later, we wrestled all the way out into the driveway. And when I came up for air, I was the bass player. And
that's crazy.
So that was the beginning of my bass career.
So you started off on guitar, though?
Yes, I did. Yeah, when I was about 7.
Wow. And you were getting paid for gigs 2 years later. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
You've had a pretty long career, I think it's fair to say, and you've accomplished quite a bit in that career. I saw that you've played with Willie Nelson before.
Yes, I have.
That's very, very special too. How did you come into contact with him, and how did you get to play with him?
Well, I mentioned that in '74 I had met Willie
at the Texas Opera House.
Texas Opera House, and we were the house band.
That must have been such a cool place.
Oh, it was musician heaven.
Yeah,
it really
seems
was.
like it. And you met damn near everybody there.
I did.
That's crazy.
Did. And met David Allen Coe there on his first gig after he got out of prison. B.W. Stevenson, and that's when I met Pootie the first time. He was doing stage management for B.W.
Yeah.
And we had kept in touch all those years, and after the band broke up and whatnot, and we stayed on the West Coast, they'd come out and they were doing shows on the West Coast, so I'd call in on Pootie and say, hey, man, me and 4 people, no problem, come on, baby boy.
Yeah.
And, we'd hang out there. And back in the days, I was probably a lot more svelte than I am now, as the years have added some pounds to my frame. But people used to think that I was Willie's son back in those days because of long red hair and a beard and all that stuff. And
that's crazy.
so, people think what they may, and, I'd say, no, I'm not a son. But you really look like him, and this and that. And then I started working with Freddie Powers in the early 80s and learning some different types of music. I was basically an R&B, country, rock and roll devotee, and hadn't really entered the realm of swing music.
Yeah.
And it was shortly after the Somewhere Over the Rainbow album that Freddie and Deanie Bird Reynolds, who was my upright bass idol and my first bass teacher for upright. Deanie Bird Reynolds was a phenomenal bass player, but he had developed some health issues and wasn't able to continue touring, and was doing just primarily the Texas dates that Freddie had, and then the West Coast dates I would do.
Oh, okay.
I would do with Freddie when Freddie came back out to the West Coast. And I was still playing electric bass at that time, but I'd learned some swing and thought I knew how to walk the bass. And time and time again, I'd start walking what I thought was a correct walking pattern, and Freddie'd look over at me and admonish me and go, 2, baby, 2. He'd hold 2 fingers down. He wanted me to play like tuba parts, because I would get in the way of the instrumentalists who were playing the correct swing patterns, and I didn't really have it yet. And at the end of about a 6-week gig run that we had done, it was Bobby Black on steel guitar, or Ernie Hager on the steel guitar from Commander Cody Band, and some of the other, Freddie Jr. Playing drums, Freddie's son. And we got done with that run of gigs. It was in early 80s, I guess 83, somewhere around there. And Freddie told me, he said, BB, you're an all right bass player. He said, but that electric bass just isn't my sound. He says, Deanie Bird's got some health issues and is thinking about retiring. And I'll tell you this, that if you get an upright bass, I'll hire you full time.
Wow.
And next day I showed up on Freddie's front porch out in Washoe Valley. He was living at the time in between Carson City and Reno, backside of a mountain, with an upright bass. Yeah. That I had absolutely no idea what to do with. But I had an upright, and that's an encouragement to anybody that wants to learn the upright bass. The first thing you got to do is get one. Because it's completely different. Yeah. Completely different instrument, other than the names of the 4 strings on it. That it's everything. It's a very good teacher. The bass teaches you. Right. Interesting. Just without any otherwise qualms or prerequisites. It's like, okay, well, if you're going to do this, you got to do it this way, because otherwise you're going to kill yourself on the thing. And many blisters and many a broken bass part later, I learned the techniques and the fundamentals of playing upright, and Freddie allowed me to learn on stage, and I was playing with some of the greatest players in the world. It was a magic time.
Yeah, it's really cool. Would you say it's fair to say that you have your own unique style of playing the upright bass?
I do. It's unique unto itself, but very similar to what I consider. I mean, kind of. You go from Pops Foster to Yakima Bill, right? And Scotty Moore, and all of the great players in between. That there was such a wealth to draw from, and of course Bill Black, from the Elvis group, and. It was weird because I'd been trying to learn to slap, and I was getting my bass worked on at Maytan Music back in Reno back in the day. And I was down there talking to the luthier, good friend of mine, David Edwards, and he set me up with the first kind of showed me what to do and how to set the bass up, and he was performing a lot of work. I had to have a lot of work done on that old upright. It was a 41K M1. And so I was getting that work done and talking to my buddy who's a left-handed upright player, and he really did great work on the basses and did setups. And down there that day was David Rowe from the Johnny Cash Band, and they were in town playing at the Nugget. And while I was down there, David handed me my bass back and said, "Oh, by the way, BB, this is David Rowe from Johnny Cash Band." Went to jelly inside, I went, "Oh, hi, David. How are you?" And he said, "Well, I understand that you're just starting out on the upright." And he was very kind and took some time with me and showed me some technique, showed me how he played Folsom Prison Blues. And that percussive slap with the pull and the whole deal.
Yeah.
So I went to town on that, and I already had all the Johnny Cash records, so I probably hadn't had them out for a while. But when I went back and listened to them and kind of honed in on what he was telling me about the slap techniques and what to do, what not to do, and he said, "Don't do it too hard because you're going to kill yourself." And of course, I didn't heed that warning. I lost body parts at different times of my bass playing, upright bass playing career. Yeah. And he was just very kind and patient, and got his number to this day, and we talk infrequently, but every once in a while it was like he was playing with Dwight Yoakam and called me up from the Letterman show back in the day and said, "Hey man, I'm going to be on Letterman." Of course, I watched it, and he was playing electric bass on that gig. But
that's wild.
David Rowe, what a great guy, and incredible inspiration to me. Mm-hmm. that he could make that much music out of just what would otherwise be an ensemble instrument.
Yeah. It's interesting. The reason why I asked if you feel you have your own unique style, I watched a video of you playing the upright bass, and I don't have a whole lot to go on. I haven't seen many people play the upright bass, especially to the way you do it. But it's almost like if the upright bass wasn't there, it looked like you're casting a spell or something. I mean, your hands are just going wild crazy, and it's really entertaining to watch in and of itself, I mean, even without the music, it's really cool to see.
Well, one technique that I did kind of innovated on my own was holding the LP rhythm egg and the baby maracas in my hand at the same time.
What?
That I'd be able to create not only a cross stick, but the snare feel and the rattle sounded like cymbals or like a hi-hat.
Wow.
Open hi-hat. Wow. And so...
is there a video of you doing that anywhere?
Should be, yeah.
I'll have to find that. That sounds really cool.
I'm endorsed by Astro Rope.
I was going to ask you about them. Are you directly involved or just endorsed?
Just endorsed.
Right.
But nonetheless, that was a nice little boon to my electronics.
Yeah.
And their chords are very good, by the way. Astro Rope cables, they're directional, and they're very high quality. And, arguably probably the best chord I've ever used.
Really?
But, through that video, you can find that video there that it's got kind of a breakdown of some of the slap and the maraca technique that I use.
I saw you doing one video for what's it called, Astro Rope. I saw you doing that, and that's where the bass playing just is totally outstanding. It's really cool to see.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's great, man. It's like I said before we started, it's like one of my favorite parts of the job is doing this, because most people that get back here just have twice or three times as much life experience as I do, and I find music interesting, but just the way that you were at Texas Opera House and meeting all these new people and kind of learning as you went along, I find that really interesting too. And it kind of leads to the question of, do you find networking more valuable or do you find talent more valuable? Because I think both are very important, but
they are, but one without the other is
useless almost, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So you really have
it's
to.
It's almost a cruel joke at that point.
Yeah, you can be extremely talented, but just not have the networking ability to get on certain stages or play with certain people. And I find that pretty intriguing, the way that you were able to network your way as you were learning to play almost.
Well, there's a lot of value in keeping in touch with people, because music is about people, and without people, who would you be playing to?
Exactly.
Every person that you play for is a reflection of that music, and their energy comes back at you as you release it to them. And so I do believe that, it's a combination of those two things. Networking otherwise becomes a 90-second infomercial, and nobody wants to hear that infomercial.
Yeah, of course.
It's like you change the channel just as soon as you can. So I learned very early on, I'm not a photo bomber. There could have been a whole lot more photos of me out there with all the people I played with. There's very few. There's a few videos, just like the Austin City Limits that we did with Willie Nelson, Merle Haggard, Freddie Powers, and Iris DeMent. That was season 21 in 1995 when we did that.
Wow.
But all those things combined does not equal a paycheck. So you have to be industrious and willing to step out and meet and greet and do the important things of building friendships and relationships, because music, just like anything else, you have a relationship with the music. Doesn't matter what instrument you're playing. That instrument is a relationship, but the relationship is just like anything else. You can be the best of friends, but if you don't have any relationship and if you don't keep in touch, then it kind of pales to any of the upside of what the beneficial aspects of that relationship could be. Now, motive is always an indicator. You don't have ulterior motives. You just want to get better. You want to play better. You want to sing better. You want to be able to perform better in all these circumstances. And oftentimes, when people are sitting in their room or their rehearsal space or whatever it is, you forget that the people that you're going to be playing for are as much of a part of that music, because without somebody to receive the information, it kind of goes off into the universe and is of no consequence. But when you actually focus and you direct your music at a group of people, then that, in reciprocation, comes back at you and gives you the power to maintain your journey. And it's not just financial, it's emotional, it's spiritual.
Wow. Yeah, wise words. BB, I can't thank you enough for doing this with us today. That was seriously a pleasure to have you in here, and that was a lot of fun. You have a lot of good stories and a lot of good advice to give. Thank you very much,
All
man.
right, thank you.
And hopefully we can get you to stay and play some stuff.
Okay, yeah,
All right.
I'd love to.
Let's do it.
All right, thanks. One man celebration ain't what I had in mind, so I sit here sipping on this glass of wine, working telephone beside my bed. Way the calls are coming in. Swear the line was dead, but there's no place like home. And it's lonesome in this little hotel room. Plaster on the ceiling is just about to fall. There's a picture hanging crooked on the wall. Song on the radio plays on. For a moment there, thought I heard our song, but there's no place like home. And it's lonesome in this little hotel room. From a window I can see a falling star. I wonder, do you see it where you are? Wouldn't it be something if it's true? You made the same wish that I do, but there's no place like home. And it's lonesome in this little hotel room. And it's lonesome in this little hotel room.